Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Thanks for stopping by. I hope you had a great weekend. We had a really interesting Friday with a gentleman called Ben Robson, written a book, traded FX, and has had a really interesting career. And I had a conversation with him about the foreign exchange markets. Have a listen, we've already edited it, and then he made a presentation on Friday evening which Rufus is sorting out at the moment, and he spoke of George Soros, algorithmic trading, and a lot more. Macro thoughts, speculators trimmed their net oil longs to 332,000 as Trump calls for lower oil. That is from Holger. This is a chart from the 28th of September, Brent crude. We're now at above $83. So it's been a tremendous run higher this year. And my piece over the weekend was Brent crude at a 4-year high. The world consumes 100 million barrels per day, more than twice what it was 50 years ago. If we use a price of $80 a barrel, that equates to $8 billion a day, $2.92 trillion a year, and that's a raw number without any value addition. And this is real cash, and why Richard Kapuscinski wrote in his book Shah of Shahs. Oil kindles extraordinary emotions and hopes, since oil is above all a great temptation. It is the temptation of ease, wealth, strength, fortune, power. It is a filthy, foul-smelling liquid that squirts obligingly up into the air and falls back to earth as a rustling shower of money. He also wrote, oil creates the illusion of a completely changed life, life without work, life for free. Oil is a resource that anesthetizes thought, blurs vision, and corrupts. The history of oil did not start in February 1945 when Roosevelt met King Abdul Aziz of Saudi Arabia in person aboard the USS Quincy. But the history of the petrodollar did. This grand bargain between the US president and the Saudi king established that oil would always be denominated in dollars, and folks from Saddam Hussein to Chavez of Venezuela, and now the High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs, Federica Maria Mogherini, have all sought to break the chokehold of the petrodollar. Mogherini announced that Europe would create a special purpose vehicle, a legal entity to facilitate legitimate financial transactions with Iran, and this will allow European companies to continue to trade with Iran in accordance with European Union law. I said, good luck with that, Federica, but at least she showed willing, which is as far as it goes. While Western powers have been practically religious about how they characterize oil wars as being nothing of the sort, you will recall Wolfowitz, who, when asked why a nuclear power such as North Korea was being treated differently from Iraq, where hardly any weapons of mass destruction had been found, the Deputy Defense Minister said, let's look at it simply. The most important difference between North Korea and Iraq is that economically we just had no choice in Iraq. The country swims on a sea of oil. On Friday, Brent crude surged to a 4-year high above $83 a barrel. The market is anticipating the US sanctions on Iran and a November guillotine. At its 2018 peak in May, Iran exported 2.71 million barrels per day, nearly 3% of daily global crude consumption. Trump has proven a sanction warfare specialist. In fact, his intrusive, coercive, economic, and sanction warfare strategy is surely his signature success of what has been an otherwise freewheeling US administration. Venezuela, which was another big supplier, is imploding, the market is tight, and the Total CEO is now calling for triple-digit oil prices. This is a double whammy for many emerging markets, strong oil, weak currencies, with India and its Prime Minister a sitting duck, for example. Trump has become increasingly strident about high prices, which is a little cute given that it is his sanctioned warfare, particularly against Iran, which has lifted prices. Donald Trump spoke on the phone Saturday with King Salman bin Abdulaziz of Saudi Arabia, days after the US president's latest criticism of OPEC over higher oil prices. Trump has gone after OPEC multiple times this year, including while speaking at the United Nations on September the 25th. OPEC and OPEC nations are, as usual, ripping off the rest of the world, and I don't like it, Trump said in an address at the UN General Assembly in New York. We want them to stop raising prices, we want them to start lowering prices, and they must contribute substantially to military protection from now on. He, of course, is facing a problematic midterm, and the last thing he wants are angry consumers at the polling stations. Therefore, I venture he will be tempted to unload supply out of the US Special Reserve, and therefore bulls need to be wary of a precipitous downside draft on that announcement, which might well wash a lot of people out. That announcement will be the starting gun for folks who have the guts to catch a falling knife, because it will prove a momentary and fleeting fire sale. Bloomberg, with oil at $100 a barrel, what does that mean for the global economy? And they've got, who wins from higher oil prices? Most of the biggest oil-producing nations are emerging economies. Saudi Arabia leads the way with a net oil production that's almost 21% of GDP as of 2016, more than twice that of Russia, which is the next among 15 major emerging markets ranked by Bloomberg Economics. Other winners could include Nigeria and Colombia. Who loses? India, China, Taiwan, Chile, Turkey, Egypt, Ukraine are among the nations who would take a hit. Paying more for oil will pressure current accounts and make economies more vulnerable to rising US interest rates. One of the biggest winners might also find itself on the losing end. This is Norway's central banker. WTI crude oil last trading at $73.50. That chart is from Sun Chartist. Let's move on to home thoughts. I like this. Dites à mes rêves de se faire beau. J'arrive. You have to translate that yourself, but it's a lovely photograph of a girl on a swing. The views were immensely wide. Everything that you saw made for greatness and freedom and unequaled nobility. Karen Blixen out of Africa. I like this. The sun has risen like a flower opening in the Masai Mara. I live in the shade created by the sunrise I am waiting for. Isabel Razor's reflective dogma. Ewaso lions are doing a great job of protecting the lions, and the Samburu tweeted, "Sunset with beautiful giraffes in Samburu today." It's a lovely place to visit. You know what you are truly alive when you're living among lions, said Isaac Dinison out of Africa. And on that note, this is a portrait of a Panthera, black and white portrait of Panthera Leo in Naibosho Conservancy this July from Jaisal Singh. From there I went to Black Mirror by Richard Wilson at the Hayward Gallery. A reflection on still water was perhaps the first picture that Homo sapiens ever encountered. The importance of mirrors in the history of art has been underestimated. The sky was really more than pale blue or violet, with a profusion of mighty, weightless, ever-changing clouds towering up and sailing on it. But it has blue vigor in it, and at a short distance it painted the ranges of hills and woods a fresh deep blue again, the current books. Happy 811th birthday, Maulana Rumi, tweeted Javad Zarif. I am not of the east, nor of the west, nor of the land, nor of the sea. For I belong to the soul of the beloved. I have put duality away. I have seen that the two worlds are one. One I seek, one I know, one I see, one I call. And my favorite quote is, we come spinning out of nothingness, scattering stars like dust. Political reflections. Wang Yi said on Friday there was no cause for panic over friction between Beijing and Washington, but warned that China would not be blackmailed. In my experience, when policymakers say don't panic, it means panic. Japanese and American forces flew near the uninhabited Diaoyu Islands, which are controlled by Japan but claimed by China. And my question is, who blinks first? US warships sailed near the disputed South China Sea Islands, 12 nautical miles off Gavin and Johnson Reefs in the Spratly Islands. The operation was the latest attempt to counter what Washington sees as Beijing's efforts to limit freedom of navigation in the strategic waters where Chinese, Japanese, and some Southeast Asian navies operate. JP Morgan sees an all-out US-China tariffs, lowers its yuan call. JP Morgan has adopted a new baseline that assumes the US-China endgame involving 25% US tariffs on all Chinese goods in 2019. And indeed, I think that's the correct assumption. I wrote a piece in July, Tariff Wars, who blinks first. I was making the comparison between Trump and a chicky warfare specialist. Trump says he and Kim Jong-un fell in love during a letter courtship. Boris Johnson declares war on Theresa May. This was in the Sunday Times. In an interview with the Sunday Times, his first with the newspaper since resigning from the cabinet, the former foreign secretary questioned whether Theresa May believes in Brexit and branded her Chequers plan deranged. The question is, are they going to commit mutual suicide? Putin needs to shut out Netanyahu over Syrian airspace, or shut up, I concluded after that aeroplane was shot down. Now we learn that the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said on Friday Moscow had started delivering the S-300 surface-to-air missiles to Syria. The delivery started already, and as President Putin said after that incident, the measures that we will take will be devoted to ensuring 100% safety and security of our men. The US has ordered the departure of all US government personnel from its consulate in Basra. We need to keep an eye on that development. Brent Kavanaugh's belligerent behavior violated the American Bar Association's Code of Judicial Conduct. Indeed. That's why I tweeted yesterday, just look at their faces during those hearings, switch off the sound. And basically Kavanaugh reminded me of Cato Kalin. Have a look at this little bit of footage described by Professor Paul Ekman of Cato Kalin and tell me that it's not the same thing. His performance was right out of Norman Rockwell with a touch of madman, says the New York Times. This caught my attention. There is a coordinated script that has been in place for a very long time with the goal to turn the human race into non-thinking automatons. International markets. India is set to overtake Japan as the world's third biggest economy by 2030. A new trilateral pact is to be called the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement. Currency markets, euro dollar 115.91, dollar index 95.22, Japanese yen 113.94. That's been a big move in the dollar yen. Swiss franc 0.9817, the pound 130.31. The Australian dollar 0.7208, India rupee 72.815, South Korean won 11.1121, The Rial 405.16, Egyptian pound 17.8545, and the Rand, which has really been strengthening of late, 14.1436. Goldman Sachs, Chris Coleman, whom I met in Nairobi quite a while ago, is talking about going back to 11. Dollar index, this is a 3-month chart. I think my target's going to stick with 100. Euro dollar, I think 115.15 is the key pivot. We're above that for now. Tesla, $922 million of convertible bond matures on March the 1st, 2019. If the stock is below 359 conversion price, then Tesla pays out $920 million. Strong motivation to make materially misleading claims about production profitability and buyout funding for a company with liquidity issues. Musk reportedly walked out of settlement talks with the SEC at the last minute, which some are likening to rolling the dice with your life. Anyway, he's decided to step down as chairman and disgorge $20 million. Trade FX Smart, which is Ben Robson, spoke about Tesla, Elon Musk, Facebook, Twitter, and Snap in this clip that I took from his presentation on Friday. Facebook, ready to roll over, it should surprise to the downside, just as it did to the upside. That sun chart is to gold, last at 1189. I'm not bullish, although several charters seem to think it's forming a base. We're just a week away from Brazil's elections. Currently, the Brazil Economic Policy Uncertainty Index is abated relative to last year's beef scandal. Today's drop in Philippine stocks takes the main index to the very bottom globally for this year. Sub-Saharan Africa, President Museveni is taking no chances and making no concessions. He is mobilizing 24,000 reservists as popular protests continue. Taking no chances and basically is obviously going to take a very, very hard line. Sudan's central bank has devalued its pegged currency from 6.7 to about £29 per dollar in the last year, but the black market rate is still lower, at about 45. They're issuing a £100 note. Total wealth of African cities in 2017, Johannesburg leads, then Cape Town. Professor Pielo Lumumba was denied entry into Zambia, where he was supposed to deliver a lecture, Africa in the Age of China Influence and Global Geodynamics. The Chinese have been very aggressive about shutting down voices they don't like, where they have influence. They bought a newspaper in South Africa and did the same there. Select sub-Saharan African currency performance versus the dollar, that's from the Saiton report. African stock markets last 12-month returns. Malawi is top, up 54.3%. Ghana is second, up 11.9%. Ramaphosa on the end of Ramaphoria and on the future, but I like the long game. Now the reforms are coming fast and furious, he said. Meanwhile, in South Africa, some 90 politicians have been killed since the start of 2016, twice the annual rate of the previous 16 years. South African all shares down 6.38% this year. Dollar versus Rand, this is a 6-month chart, the Rand remains a little bit firm. Egypt's pound is at 17.8545. Sometimes people call me Baba Go Slow. Those who were going fast, where did they go? Asked President Buhari. Nigerian all share down 14.32% this year. Ghana's stock exchange is up 11.75% this year. Ghana's economy is now 25% bigger after a data overhaul. GDP at current prices is $52.5 billion in 2017. They grew 8.1% last year, new data shows. At a headline level, these big upward GDP revisions help because they imply a country can manage a larger debt burden. But the tax take does not raise by 25% as well. So actually markets have to recalibrate down what they think is an acceptable level of debt is. Renka. Yields on African Eurobonds have continued to rise in quarter 3 2018. The one that's really risen, of course, is Zambia. Kenya, thank you to the people of Kinamba for the fantastic welcome for the Duke of Cambridge. This is here in Kenya. It's a little bit of video. It's very, very charming. The Kenyan economy grew by 6.3% in quarter 2 2018, catching everyone off guard except the central bank governor, according to data released by the Bureau of Statistics, versus 4.7% in quarter 2 2017, as everyone was anticipating the election at that point in time. Yields on the 10-year Eurobond and the 30-year Eurobond decreased by 0.2 and 0.3 to 7.6 and 8.5% respectively. Kenyan shilling gained marginally against the dollar by 0.1% in quarter 3 2018 to close at 101. This was on the back of improved diaspora remittances, which increased by 71.9% to $266.2 million in June 2018. During the quarter, the Nairobi All-Share, the NSE 25 and the NSE 20 declined by 14.2%, 15.6% and 12.5% respectively. Worst performing stock market, I think, out of 90 that Bloomberg track. The Nairobi All-Share is down 12.58% year to date. The market is trading at a P/E ratio of 12.1 and a dividend yield of 4.8%. Key to note is that the Assented Finance Bill 2018 does away with the floor on deposit pricing, which was initially set at 70% of the central bank rate, but retains the cap on loan pricing at 4% above the CER. UNGA reported full-year earnings per share surged 1,271%. UNGA was the subject of a takeover offer by its majority shareholder, Seaboard. Revenue was up 2.321%, profit before tax up 468%, EPS up 1,271%. Cash and cash equivalents was down 1.08 billion though, dividend 1 shilling. The important point here is, as they commented, discontinuation of operations at the Ugandan subsidiary shielded the group from some of the losses suffered in the preceding year, in which an investment impairment was recorded. Exploration of regional opportunities is ongoing. Strong rebound. The NSE 20 is down 22.53%. David Ndee has written another article in the East African Review, Fiddling While Kenya Burns. He's making a lot of important points. It's well worth reading that article in full. And it's really hocus pocus economics at this point, I'm afraid. Sunset at Meader Creek, Watamu, photo by Richard H. Muhindi. Lovely photograph as well. Thank you as ever for stopping by.